Don and the program that y'all have?
I'll get it started and then
Thank
I'll
you.
turn it.
Thank you. I'm going to run the computer and y'all just tell me when to go.
Okay, and for those who don't know me, I'm Jay Riney. I'm the first assistant city attorney, and I've got my city hat on tonight as opposed to my Base Foundation hat
For a few more months, right?
for a few more months. The city is getting ready to, well, we've started embarking on a project called the Joint Land Use Study, or JLUS, with the Navy. For those who don't know, the Navy and the lieutenant commands there at the Naval Air Station are really responsible for a lot of the major jobs in the city. In fact, the #1 employer in the city of Corpus Christi is the Army Depot. And if, the naval station goes away, I assume all those jobs will go away too. So trying to make sure that we can keep a viable installation is very high on the city's priority list. The Navy, right now, the city has what are called air installation compatible use zones. And of course, if you've ever been in the military or worked with the federal government, you've got to know acronyms, because everything is known by the acronyms. Those are called ACUs. And the city has basically 3 sets of ACUs regulations, one for the major, for the air station itself, one for Waldron Field, and one for Cabinets Field. Even though the Navy operates, in fact, most of the flights in and out of Corpus Christi International Airport are actually Navy flights. Because it's a civilian airport, we don't have an ACUs for there. But the Navy is getting ready to get new trainers. The trainers are going to be bigger. They're going to need more runway to land and take off on, and they're going to have more noise. And so we've got to look at whether the current zoning patterns we have are adequate. We already know they're not, but we've got to go through a process to determine what land uses can continue to exist, where we may need to buy property to move out incompatible uses, where we may need more restrictions on land use. We got to consider what are going to be the impact of people because of the increased noise. And on the Navy, we also want to look at it to make sure we keep the Navy happy. The Navy has to worry about things like at the end of one of their primary runways at Cabinets Field, there's this nice big pond. Well, ponds attract lots of water birds. Birds and airplanes do not mesh very well. When you have a collision between the two of them, you can either cause one, you'll kill the bird. 2, you'll do a lot of damage, and Don has some photos, I think, in his presentation that'll show you how much damage a little bird can do to a big airplane if it doesn't drop it out of the sky and kill some people. So those are some concerns which may affect our audience a little bit. Also, a new thing that's coming into play for here in South Texas is, Pat and I discovered trying to walk into the building today, is extremely windy. And people who are promoting green energy think that this is a wonderful area for wind generations, things that look like windmills, but they're wind generators, they're not windmills. Since they're not, I guess we're not milling using the wind, we're producing power. Well, there's something called electromagnetic interference that those things generate, and that's actually causing problems for for the Navy and actually for civilian airport and the U.S. Weather Service. In fact, if a tornado was coming to Papalote, Texas, from the north, you would not be able, the weather radar cannot tell you where it is because it'll get wiped out in the interference that's caused by that on weather radar. We'll talk about that a little more in this presentation. So there's a lot of issues out there, and we're using this opportunity to tell the public. We've just selected a set of consultants who are going to help us work on this plan, and there's going to be many public meetings over the next year or so dealing with the actual proposals that will be being generated that the public will be invited to. So this is just sort of a lead off to get you all thinking, and if you want to help out with it, let us know. Our speaker tonight is Don Zimmerman, and Don's the Community Planning Liaison Officer, or what's the P?
Plans.
Plans liaison officer for the Navy in South Texas. And Don's been working with the commanding officer out there and the different environmental scientists from the DoD organization. And he's going to sort of present a pretty good paper that'll hit the points. And then we got someone from USDA, and we're going to talk a little bit about the hazards posed by animals and birds to aircraft in the area. So try to tie it in. The city is also looking at, besides what we do within the city and our zoning, we also have a joint Air Force board where we could do zoning for related to airports and military air terminals outside our jurisdiction. Right now that exists with the city, the county of Nueces County and San Pat County. And we're looking at actually trying to extend that into Aransas County and Clayburgh County, since most people don't realize actually this parts of the city of Corpus Christi are in all those counties. So we're looking to try to cover that, which will help take in Naval Air Station Kingsville and the airport up in Aransas County Airport, where the Navy does a lot of flight training too. We don't have any, we don't extend into Goliad, so we can't do anything up there.
Yeah, let's not discuss going.
Neil, can you hit that light switch?
Good evening.
Can you see?
Captain,
You okay?
yes, sir, I can. Captain Pearson asked me to extend his apologies. He really wished he was the one standing up here giving the presentation. He appreciates the opportunity to address the Coastal Bend Bays Forum. He recognizes that we haven't been nearly as good a conservation partner as we should be, and that's one of the priorities that he's given me since he's taken over. In addition to myself, we have Bob Torres. Bob Torres is a public affairs officer. What we like to say is I'm the guy behind the scenes. Bob Torres is the guy in front of the scenes. He's the voice of the installation. In addition, we have Dr. Arlen Andrews. We're very fortunate to have him. He's the installation environmental program manager. So he's heavily involved in conservation and the environmental as it relates to the installation, as well as providing support for conservation initiatives surrounding the installation as well. And then finally, we have Mr. Corey Wilson, who's actually a USDA contract employee, and he provides services to the installation. But we don't have the technical expertise that the USDA has, and that's the reason we've contracted with them. And to kind of highlight why we're concerned about both aircraft and avians, I'd like to show you the first presentation. That's pretty humorous, but I think it speaks to the fact that, you know, it's not just the aircraft that are flying. It's the avians as well. We're concerned about the animal populations. And one of the things that we stress is trying to create separate spheres for both. Excellent.
You're in control.
There we go. Our mission has been, always will be, training of baby pilots into pilots. And that's part of our concern about safety as well. It's absolutely critical that we create as safe an environment as we can for these pilots to learn how to fly and to fly well. And it governs our decisions about where we fly and what times we fly very strongly. In addition, the majority of our tenants, and you get a partial list here, almost all are involved in flight training. The four things that the Coastal Bend Bays Forum asked me to address were the Bird Animal Strike Hazard, or the BASH program, They asked me to talk about the joint land use studies. Jay has addressed, the study is in fact the city's. It's the city's project, it's their scope of work. They hire and guide the contractor that works for them. So I'm going to limit my remarks to what the Office of Economic Adjustment, Department of Defense expects and what it provides to the city to allow it to do the joint land use study. We're a partner only from the sense that we provide direct support to the city, but ultimately it's the city's project. Compatibility concerns, specifically dealing with wind turbines. Why are both Navy and civilian airports concerned about them? And also the final pitch is for conservation easements, something that we haven't done in South Texas, but have been done very successfully along the eastern seaboard, the western part of the United States, and we'd really like to get involved in creating conservation easements, not only around our installation, but also to help restore habitat in other areas to draw the animals to that we don't want around our installation. Finally, the last thing I'd like to emphasize here is we're not trying to convince you about anything. We're here to provide information to you. So I'm not going to tell you something's good. I'm not going to try to sway you and tell you that something's bad. We simply want to provide you the information so that you're able to make a sound decision on your own. I think we all remember Flight 1549. I'm not sure that everybody remembers the facts behind the case. Climbing out of the airport, this aircraft struck a flight of geese, resident population geese, that were around this airport. And as you can see, it was catastrophic effects. Unfortunately, 3 geese died in this incident as well. Sounds a little bit funny, but again, it goes back to we want to see separate spheres, because we're concerned about the animal populations as well. We're really fortunate that nobody died in this situation, but it does highlight that risk, not only to our flight operations, but to all flight operations. It's a big concern about safety of flight. 2005, this is what the approach to Cavernous looked like. You all remember the landfill that was right adjacent to that. Now it's a transfer station. There's a few less birds, but there's still considerable bird issues. And next to this airport, of course, right at the end of our runway, as Jay was discussing, there's habitat for them. There's a water source for the birds, so they end up flying back and forth from the transfer station to this water habitat. Not the best situation, and I'd like to highlight why our concerns are.
I get you close right stop.
Clear right.
Thank you.
G6NL.
Yeah.
G6NL.
Engine.
Okay.
Okay. Around the horn. Restart.
Gear not done. Gear not done.
Just gonna try to get a relay going.
Okay.
Get her from the front.
Alright,
I'll fly the plane.
Okay. Okay, engine stop. Stop.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, you go.
I can see our engine. Okay, you ready to
G6NL.
go?
I'm ready.
Okay. And Mike and 2 were ejected to the north. We have an engine failure. Okay, prepare to back aircraft. Eject.
I can ask you to copy your brake out to the north.
Did everybody get to see the small bird that was taken into the aircraft on that strike? It's one of the most clear examples of that. That's a European flight trainer. It's very similar to the Goshawks that Kingsville trains with. And they are just as susceptible to a single engine failure, and that's all they have, from ingesting one small bird. Fortunately, our propeller-driven aircraft are not quite as susceptible, but they are very susceptible. I've seen similar demonstrations with the same type of aircraft that we're using as our primary flight trainer, resulting in pretty catastrophic situations.